Hey, notice anything different? Ho ho ho. Eamonn Holmes and Ruth Langsford were together for 14 full years. To everyone watching, they seemed really solid, super familiar, almost like nothing could touch them. But in 2024, it all fell apart and their marriage just quietly ended. They broke up, went separate ways, and it looked like the story was done. After that, we mostly heard Ruth's side. Her story shaped what people thought, filled up all the headlines, and set the way everyone saw the split. Eamonn stayed completely quiet. No interviews, no explanations, no arguing back. Until now. At 66, Eamonn Holmes is finally talking. And what he's saying totally changes the feeling of everything. It makes the breakup look different, and, even more, it changes how Ruth Langsford seems after everything. So, what exactly did Eamonn Holmes say, and why did he wait so long to share his side? Come along as we dive into all the details. Eamonn Holmes, his rise, the long silence, and the side of the story you never got to hear. Long before any headlines, breakups, or careful statements, Eamonn Holmes was just a schoolboy from Belfast figuring out how to hold people's attention. He went to Holy Family Primary School, then St. Malachy's College, and later Dublin College of Business Studies. Nothing in that path screamed famous star. What it did show was discipline, routine, and getting comfortable with structure early on. And that ended up maturing a lot, because Eamonn built his whole career on being someone people could count on when everything else was live, wild, unpredictable, and often crazy. His first big chance came in 1979 when he started at Ulster Television as a young presenter and reporter on Farming Ulster. It wasn't fancy and it wasn't on national TV, but it was real TV work. It taught him how to think fast and talk to people naturally without acting fake. From there, he moved smoothly into sports reporting, working with experienced reporters and learning live TV the tough way through lots of practice and pressure. By 1982, Ulster Television trusted him enough to put him in the anchor chair on Good Evening Ulster, their main news show. He was taking over a spot that used to be Gloria Hunniford's. It was a quiet but big sign they believed in him. Eamonn wasn't just reading news anymore. He was guiding talks, setting the mood, and becoming a face people in Northern Ireland knew and trusted at home. He didn't stick only to news. He hosted pageants, specials, and live events, showing he could switch from serious stuff to fun without losing trust. When he left Ulster Television in 1986 to go to the BBC, it wasn't running away. It was a step up. In Manchester, he joined Open Air on BBC One, going national and learning what it felt like to talk to millions instead of just thousands. Then came the thing that really changed it all. In 1993, Eamonn joined GMTV and helped start its very first show. Morning TV is tough. You're live super early, and you have to be sharp while the whole country is still sleepy. Eamonn did great there. He became part of people's daily routines, the voice that helped them start their day. Even when drama happened behind the scenes, like a big public fight with Anthea Turner, he stayed steady in his job. When he finally left GMTV in 2005, he didn't go quietly. He said straight out that the show had moved away from real news and too much into silly celebrity stuff. That straight talk stuck with him. 6 months later, Sky News got him to front Sunrise. Once again, Eamonn got into the early morning groove, switching co-hosts but always keeping things calm and chatty. Along the way, he became one of TV's most flexible presenters: snooker, darts, horse racing, tennis, quiz shows, panel shows, faith shows like Songs of Praise, game shows like Jeopardy! He didn't go after fancy awards. He went after being steady. Even when he started on This Morning in 2006, Eamonn did what he was best at, making live TV feel real and relaxed but still safe. That style hit its high point when he started presenting with Ruth Langsford. On screen, they looked easy together, familiar, and totally believable. They hosted shows like Gift Wrapped and Eamonn and Ruth. How the Other Half Lives, turning their real marriage into a TV thing. To viewers, it felt normal and nice. For Eamonn, it became part of how everyone saw him. But behind the scenes, TV was changing. In 2020, Eamonn lost a court case about his freelance status under IR 35 rules. It forced him to defend his worth in public. He called himself one of the best live presenters around. whether people agreed or not. You could hear the confidence. Radio was always his other thing. From downtown radio in the late 80s to Radio 5 Live, Magic 105.4, BBC Radio 2, and later talk radio. Eamonn used radio to talk longer, go deeper, and be more real without all the polish. It was where his real opinions showed clearest, and people heard him without bright lights. By 2022, he joined GB News to start a breakfast show with Isabel Webster. He said it felt like a place that valued him again, where real journalism came first and rules could bend just enough to keep talks honest. And now, after years of being the steady guy, the reliable one, the man who hardly ever explained himself, Eamonn is talking again. Not as a presenter reading news, but as a regular guy finally stepping out from the headlines. And when he does, the story doesn't go forward. It goes back to the part of his life that stayed private long before cameras, comments, or explanations. Eamonn and Ruth. The private love story that couldn't handle the spotlight. Eamonn and Ruth's love didn't start as some big public thing or a TV couple. Made for fans to love. It started quiet, careful, almost slow, when timing and holding back mattered more than rushing. When Eamonn Holmes met Ruth Langsford in 1997 through their friend Sally Mean, there was no hurry to label it or tell the world. Eamonn had split from his first wife, Gabrielle, 2 years before, and they decided early to keep things private, not hiding, but out of respect. That choice, made way before cameras followed them, set the tone for everything after. When they started dating, they kept it totally out of the public eye. Years later, Ruth said looking back that Eamonn's push for privacy actually made her like him more. She said it showed what kind of man he was, what kind of dad he wanted to be, and how much integrity he had in private. It didn't make her feel hidden. It made her feel safe. 2 years went by before they went public, and by then the relationship was already strong. Things moved fast after. In 2002, they had their son, Jack, and that quietly became the center of their world. Ruth later said she found out she was pregnant just one day before her godson Charlie's christening. Eamonn was away, so she told her best friend Sam, Charlie's mom, first. It was a close, private moment, one of those big life things that feels huge without needing anyone else there. She called it a really special moment together, even without Eamonn. By 2006, their personal and work lives mixed completely. 9 years in, Eamonn joined Ruth on the Friday This Morning show. Ruth was already set there since 1999, quietly becoming its longest-running presenter. Working together wasn't something they said was simple. Ruth admitted openly that being with your partner at work had challenges, but they handled it most of the time. As years went on, they became one of daytime TV's best-known teams. Together they did Gift Wrapped, How the Other Half Lives, Lose a Stone in 4 Weeks, Eamonn and Ruth's 7-Year Itch, and Do the Right Thing. Their chemistry turned into part of who they were in public. The line between their marriage and their brand got blurry. Eamonn joked about it once, saying he couldn't leave TV because viewers wouldn't let him. Back then it sounded fun. Looking back, it felt like a promise deeper than they knew. 13 years after meeting and 5 years after Eamonn's divorce from Gabrielle finished, they got married at Elvetham Hall in Hampshire. Soon after, they bought a 6-bedroom house in Weybridge, Surrey, said to cost £3.2 million. It seemed like everything fit perfectly. Stability, success, forever. Years later, on Strictly Come Dancing, Ruth talked about a marriage full of understanding. She said Eamonn was the first to tease her and also the first to surprise her with sweet things. Even when the show took over her time, she trusted he got her completely. She believed that was why they worked. Then 2020 came, and a change hit that neither expected. In November, Eamonn and Ruth got dropped from This Morning suddenly, replaced by Alison Hammond and Dermot O'Leary. They were really angry. At work it hurt bad. At home, it started a real gap between them. Ruth stayed with ITV, still on Loose Women. Eamonn went a totally different way, joining GB News for a breakfast show. For the first time in years, their jobs didn't match, and the distance wasn't just work anymore. By May 2024, the long silence broke. Eamonn and Ruth said their marriage was over and they were divorcing. A spokesperson said work had pulled them in different directions. The words were calm, control, Ed, careful. They wanted to stay friends. They wanted it amicable and promised a statement for fans. But behind those careful words was the end of something built on patience, privacy, and shared goals. And behind that end was something else wearing them down long before the marriage broke. Because while the split got explained in calm, professional words, the real pressure had been building quietly in the one place Eamonn Holmes couldn't escape, his own body. Eamonn Holmes, the pain that stayed after the camera stopped. For years, viewers saw strength. What they missed was how much that strength came at a cost. Behind a familiar voice and steady look on TV, Eamonn Holmes was battling a body failing bit by bit. But through it all, Ruth Langsford stayed right by his side, giving support, comfort, and hope. But now, with the marriage ending and Eamonn starting a new chapter alone, those illness years don't feel like side stuff anymore. They feel like the spot where things started shifting. Eamonn never hid his health problems. He talked about them a lot, sometimes joking, sometimes super honest. Long before the marriage ended, his body was already struggling hard. Years of bad pain led to a double hip replacement in 2016, a 3.25-hour surgery after too long living in constant hurt. Back then, he compared it to live TV, nervous before, but calm once it started. He even talked about the weird moment people gave him emotional goodbyes the night before surgery, like he was leaving forever without going anywhere. Waking up to a smiling surgeon, his wife, and a lunch menu felt strangely relieving. He joked it proved he was still alive. That joking, that way of performing even in pain, kept coming up. Then 2018 hit. On what should have been a happy family day, Eamonn got shingles right on his son Declan's wedding day. The virus made his face swollen, marked, and hard to recognize. Years later on Loose Women, he showed pictures and talked openly about how rough it was. He explained shingles hides in your body for years and can hit suddenly. Looking at the photos, he said he looked like Quasimodo and admitted how shocking it was. But 2021 started his worst drop. That spring, out of nowhere, Eamonn got terrible back pain that wouldn't go away. It got worse fast, leaving him needing a walking stick. Then came the news that changed it all. 3 slipped discs, all messing with his right leg movement. The diagnosis explained the pain, but didn't fix it. By year's end, Eamonn said the condition hit him hard and his family too. He said some days he couldn't walk, couldn't bend, couldn't do normal things, and needed Ruth's help. He admitted his sons felt embarrassed by how he moved, and losing independence hurt as much as the pain. Scans showed the disc sticking out, but he hoped it might fix itself. It didn't. Epidural shots helped a bit, but not enough. Life got more limited, and hopes for quick surgery faded. When doctors said other spine and nerve problems needed fixing first, Eamonn felt crushed. Already hurt for a year and wanted answers bad. In September 2022, he left his GB News show for important spinal surgery. It was supposed to be the big fix. Instead, it led to worse stuff. Even with heavy physiotherapy, his movement stayed limited. He talked openly about how needing help for basic things felt crushing. Even sitting still for hours after physio made him feel guilty, like resting was bad. The surgery weakened his left leg too, and just over 2 weeks into recovery, disaster hit. Eamonn fell backward down 18 stairs at his Weybridge home, crashing onto the stone floor. It could have killed him. Instead, he got a broken shoulder and more damage to his weak legs. He later said the break set him back huge, forcing more time off work and new expectations. Even then, setbacks kept coming. A year after surgery, in September 2023, he had a spine and neck stretching treatment, admitting he still couldn't walk. Right. He said he couldn't run, couldn't walk much, and mostly just sat watching TV. It wasn't the recovery he wanted. Not even close. By 2024, recovery was all he focused on. Daily physio became normal. A cane or wheelchair was needed. And while Ruth supported him in public, she admitted things had changed. She said they might have to accept he'd never be fully okay. She talked about hoping while knowing long-term care tests, even the best families. Now, with the marriage done, those words hit different. What sounded like toughness now feels like giving up. The call Ruth wasn't supposed to hear. Inside the moment, Eamonn and Ruth's marriage really collapsed. For months, people explained the end of Eamonn Holmes and Ruth Langsford's marriage with soft words. Health issues, work stress, two people going different ways. It sounded fair, almost kind. But behind closed doors, the real end didn't happen slowly or softly. It came in one huge, shocking moment. A moment Ruth wasn't meant to hear. And once she did, whatever was left just broke. Reports say the marriage ended after Ruth found out something shocking. In their Surrey home, Eamonn thought he was alone, relaxed, not watched. While on the phone, he didn't know Ruth was in the house, but she could hear him. And what she heard wasn't normal chat. It was called intimate, cozy, personal. Ruth was horrified. She confronted him right away, and the shock hit both. Eamonn reportedly had no clue she was there. By the time he realized Ruth heard everything, the hurt was done. For Ruth, it hit extra hard because of all that came before. Years of standing by him through bad health, surgeries, constant pain, and losing movement. She cared for him when his body let him down. Then overhearing him talk intimately with another woman wasn't just sad. It felt like a real betrayal, a kick when she was down. And that was just the start. Sources say after the phone confrontation, the marriage didn't end right then. It dragged on, hurt and weak. But weeks later, Ruth found something else. This time, not overheard. It was messages on Eamonn's laptop. Reports say that discovery changed it all. Any hope left vanished. Insiders called it the final straw. The timing matters. The phone argument happened around April. The laptop messages came weeks after, and soon the public news hit. Calm, controlled, careful words. A joint statement said the marriage was over and they were divorcing. No details, no feelings, just an end to 27 years together. Fans were shocked when it broke. 14 years married, almost 30 years as a couple, gone suddenly. Soon after going public, Eamonn moved on. He started a relationship with Katie Alexander and went public with it. Ruth stayed single in public. She focused on herself, her friends, and rebuilding quietly. Recently, she celebrated her birthday with a girls' trip. For a while, Ruth said nothing. Then she finally talked. In her first interview after the split, Ruth shared about a tough, painful breakup. She said it was hard to deal with ending a marriage and relationship that covered most of her adult life. But her words had no anger, just strength. She said when any relationship ends, marriage or friendship, you hit a choice. You can fall apart or pick yourself up and keep going. She picked going forward. She said she wasn't happy the marriage ended, but she accepted it. That acceptance let her enjoy being single and make choices just for her. No holding things together, no giving in, just her. With their 22-year-old son Jack shared between them, she spoke carefully but real. She also talked about the extra pain of divorcing in public. Breakups hurt enough privately, she said, but when everyone watches, comments, and picks it apart, it's harder. Still, she said the attention comes with the job, and if you can't take it, maybe don't do the job. When asked about being alone, Ruth didn't fake it was easy. She said she's okay alone, but not forever. There's a difference between liking a weekend to yourself and knowing every weekend might be yours alone. That takes time to get used to, and that's where the story turns. While Ruth focused on moving ahead, the same thing pushed Eamonn the other way. Instead of looking forward, he started looking back. Not blaming or angry, but with the kind of deep thinking that comes only after it's all over. Eamonn Holmes' regret. The one thing he'd change if he could go back. Almost 2 years after his marriage to Ruth Langsford ended, Eamonn Holmes is finally looking back instead of ahead. And what he's saying now doesn't sound like anger or pointing fingers. It sounds heavier. Regret. Not loud or big, just the quiet kind that sits in when it's too late to fix. In a new interview, Eamonn thought about the life he made and the one that slipped away with it. He admitted if he could change one thing, he'd try harder to balance work and home life. No drama, no excuses, just a simple line that says a lot more than long explanations. When asked his biggest regret, he left it unanswered on purpose. And sometimes what you don't say means the most. Eamonn and Ruth, who presented This Morning together for years, announced their split in March 2024 after 14 years married. Their relationship went back further, starting mid-1990s, and they had one son, now 23. For decades, their lives mixed on screen and off. So the split felt bigger than just a breakup. It felt like an era ending. Since then, both moved on, but differently. Eamonn started dating relationship counselor Katie Alexander, while Ruth chose independence. She's been open about how fear slowly turned to clear thinking. At first, everything felt dark, heavy, unsure. But over time, fear went away. What came instead surprised her. Confidence, calm, even some excitement. She said she isn't against relationships or marriage, but she's not hunting either. The big thing she learned, she said, was how strong and capable she is alone. Independent, tough, okay in her own company. What felt scary now feels like a new page instead of empty. While Ruth rebuilt her feelings, Eamonn's body kept letting him down. After the split, he had more treatments, including big spinal surgery and that double hip replacement after years of awful back pain. He said the year was rough, and he'd be happy to leave it behind. In public, he admitted something harder. He'd basically been disabled over a year, needing carers for everyday stuff. He called it humiliating and humbling, but he thanked the help too. Ruth turned inside. She started counseling after the split, and still does it. She said it's powerful and steadying, a place with no judgment, no old stories, just listening. Someone who asks good questions and helps you see why things hit certain ways. She said even knowing herself, well, therapy helps her handle everything calmer. At work, Ruth is doing great. Her career grew, and she's even hinted at maybe going back to this morning. Asked about presenting with Rylan Clark, she said yes right away if asked, especially with Rylan. She called him like a TV son, someone she loves and already clicks with easily. The door is still open. There were fun moments too. On Loose Women talking about ex-PM David Cameron's health, panelist Mylene Class joked men live longer married, women live longer single. Ruth shot back quick, good to know, laughing with everyone. Short, fun, but sharp. Despite it all, the connection isn't totally gone. Over Christmas, Eamonn reached out to Ruth, saying he still respects her and wishing her happiness during a holiday awards dinner. He said straight she deserves to be happy. Simple words, but the timing counted. Even during divorce, there was still kindness. That same Christmas, Eamonn spent it with Katie at a fancy cottage in North Yorkshire. He talked openly about hoping for better ahead, still using a walking frame. He said moving around is hard every day, but he's aiming for improvement by 2026 and even thinking about new stem cell treatments. At least the fight in him is still there. And so this part ends not with a clean close, but with thinking, a man looking back and owning imbalance, a woman stepping forward and finding strength. Two lives that used to run side by side now go separate ways. No yelling, no big show, just the heavy stuff that can't change. What do you think about everything that happened between Eamonn and Ruth? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also, click the next video on your screen. You like it?